Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Future of Mining 365 exclusive with me, Andre Lamberti. I'm the editor of Mining Magazine, and I'm joined by Luciano Oliveira from US consultancy Stratalis, and by Greg Puro from Vale in Canada, I believe. Mm-hmm. We're here to talk about Vale's tailings technology strategy, which is a project that Stratalis recently completed for Vale. Luciano Oliveira, he's Stratalis head of the office in Phoenix, Arizona, and is their senior principal of the innovation practice. And Greg Puro is based in Sudbury in Ontario and is Vale's manager environment, specialized in dams and closure. Did I get that right?
Perfect.
Excellent. So, like I said, we're here to talk about the tailings technology strategy, and I just wanted to jump straight in, Luciano and Greg, just to ask you, when did the project start? How did it come about? And how did you both get involved in this?
Yeah, well, we actually got engaged in May 2020. So we have been working on this for the last 6 months. And I think it's no surprise that all mining companies are very interested in improving their performance when it comes to risk management in dams. There is a whole global new standard coming to place. And that was the context that Greg decided to hire us. So if you want to add more, Greg.
Yeah, I think for me, it's become apparent over the last number of years as the industry has suffered through some significant and tragic events and failures that we need to do better. And I think for us, what became clear to us as we started doing some internal planning around what does better look like and what do you need to do to get to world class, it became apparent that there were some technological limitations in our abilities to monitor dams and the health and performance of those structures.
Okay. So what kind of scope did the project have when you started it? Did you have a pretty clear idea of what you wanted? Did you just go to Stratalis with your brief, or did you choose Stratalis for a particular reason? Did Stratalis do anything in that field before? How did the cooperation between the two companies come about?
Yeah, Stratalis had done some other engagements for Vale in the field of strategy and technological innovation. And that really matched up well with what our needs were. So when we started talking about this engagement, some 9 or 10 months ago, we started talking about what we could potentially do together. We developed the scope iteratively in terms of and collaboratively in terms of what Stratalis could deliver and what services they could provide to help support Vale. Because while we're a mining company and an operator, including dams and dam structures, that doesn't necessarily make us the experts in technological innovation. So we really thought there was an opportunity to work collaboratively together.
Right. So when we started the project, we had done similar projects with other companies before, and we had some good hypotheses on what a good scope would look like. So we knew, for instance, that characterization techniques would be important. We knew that systems and modeling techniques would be important, and combining these two things together. But after a few weeks in the project, we had a scoping workshop, and we worked with Greg's team in getting very specific requirements on what problems they wanted to solve. So, for instance, things like solving drainage problems that were facing clogging, or dust problems, or even bathymetry things. And then we adjusted the scope to make sure that we could solve all problems that the team had.
Did you have, from the beginning, did you have a particular Were you looking at tailings in a specific region, or were you looking at tailings in general? Were you trying to achieve sort of a roadmap for everyone who uses tailings to get benefits from? What was the scope of the project? Was it more generalist, or was it tailored to certain regions and certain type of dams and tailings processing facilities?
Yeah, I would say it was a little bit more generalist. We didn't want to focus on any one jurisdiction because we wanted to take advantage of those pockets of excellence around the globe and in various industries, not just in the mining industry, to identify opportunities where people are working in an emerging technological space to find advanced solutions to common problems that may apply to our earthfill embankments and tailings dams in Vale.
Right. Yeah, I would say Vale portfolio is large, so there are mines in very different places of the world, wet places, dry places, very cold places, warm places.
Yeah.
So we wanted to take this global approach to make sure that we could find solutions that would be applicable in all conditions. But as a second step, I think now that we have like a global view of what a roadmap could look like, then the next step is to go to the sites and see what is applicable in which location.
Okay. Could you briefly outline the findings of the study? What have you come up with? Sort of the 3-4 most concrete points that you can distill this down to?
Well, first we found a very large of a number of technologies. So we listed about 200 individual technologies, ranging from things like a muon tomography that can see very deep in the underground and help understand stratigraphic layers. Things like electrical resistivity surveys that can help understand seepage and piping on a dam. We also looked into a number of modeling techniques. So things that help you have a real-time view of the dam, and a digital model that allows you to understand, for instance, how a dam will behave after 3 days of a very heavy rain.
Mm-hmm.
So we call that a type of a digital twin solution. And we also came across this idea that no individual solution will be a silver bullet, but we actually have to combine a lot of them. And that's what we call the integrated system. So when you look at the different techniques along the value chain and combine them to have a solution that will bring a more safe environment.
Yeah, I think Luciano raises a good point. There was no one simple solution that can solve all of our problems, given the variety of issues and technological challenges we have at our sites. Because as Luciano said, we've got the operating in dry climates and wet climates, cold and hot, and we've got inactive and active facilities. So the challenges we face at each of those sites can be variable. So one of the outcomes from the Stratalis engagement was a menu or a suite, if you will, of potential solutions, depending on the nature of the challenge we were trying to overcome.
Okay. Silly question. Was it the findings that you were presented with? I understand this was recently presented to you. The findings of the study were presented to you. Were there any major surprises? Were there any aspects of the study that you found rather insightful and that your engineers had not thought about beforehand?
Absolutely.
What were those surprises?
So, as an example, one of the solutions that was presented was a technology out of Europe by an infrastructure company that does road construction. I believe it was in Sweden. Okay. And it's a technology. It's a roller compaction technology that mounts onto a piece of heavy equipment used to compact soils, and it can actually measure the in situ density of the soil while you're constructing. So it's a technology that's readily available. It's already in place in a different industry, and it's directly transferable to our industry in terms of dam construction. So there really were some aha moments around technologies that are out there that can help us get better immediately.
What about for Stratalis, Luciano? What did you, the findings that you came up with, was there anything that surprised your people at all?
Yeah, I think as Greg said, one of the approaches we used was to bring knowledge from other industries like construction and military, and well, try to see if you could solve the problems from tailings. And we found things that are ready to use, like for instance, the compaction real-time measurement that Greg mentioned, but also things that are maybe technologies that will be available 5 years from now. So, for instance, we came across this study on infrasound that the military are conducting.
Okay.
And infrasound can be used in tailings for a couple of things. For instance, to detect collapse. So usually you have a very low frequency sound that precedes a collapse. And also infrasound has been used to detect voids. So for the military,
so is that an active monitoring technology?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So it was very interesting to see all these other technologies that were developed for other applications, and they had a very interesting application in tailings, and it could really change the game.
Okay. So you mentioned, Luciano, you mentioned earlier that you came up with, you obviously looked at hundreds of technologies, hundreds of companies out there who are supplying one or other service. How are you going to, obviously Vale will want to introduce some of those technologies going forward. How are you going to compact that down or whittle it down to just a couple of engineering companies or technology companies that can actually help you put those findings into reality? How are you going to go about just distilling all of the information that you've gathered?
Because there's lots. Yeah.
That's a major problem, because you have 200 technologies, and you can spend the rest of our life sorting through them. So the way we organized the findings was we look at the value chain and said, look, there's information that you need to gather from the site. There are analytical steps in between. And at the end, what we want to do is to support the decision, saying, is it safe? Or if not, does it require mitigation? So we organized all the technologies into categories, and then the categories were sub-classified into lower level vectors, and then finally into very specific problem statements. So with this hierarchical categorization, it's easy for an engineer to maybe type a few keywords and say, well, I'm looking at a displacement problem, or I'm looking at a seepage problem, or I'm looking at a bathymetry problem. And then you very clearly identify what technologies could solve that problem. Then we did something else. We said, look, there are actually for each problem different performance parameters. And we went ahead and listed the performance numbers for each of the technologies and compared them into a heat map. So the person may say, well, I want to do a bathymetry study, but I know that in my pond, there's a very high concentration for solids in suspension. Therefore, establishing the bottom is very difficult. What is the best technology for that? And then the heat map guides the decision in that way. And once we have narrowed down to, I want to do this type of solution, then we have a number of vendors that are qualified to do that.
And presumably also, because you mentioned earlier that there are many dams with each having their own characteristics, I assume that also means that of those hundreds of technologies, many will find use in various different settings. So you won't be, it's not going to be a case of, okay, we have these 5 contractors, we can use them for this and that tailings dam. It's going to be a wild combination, I suppose.
Absolutely, and so that's what the work that we're in the midst of now is building a technology roadmap for each one of the sites. So one of our sites in Brazil is going to have a technology roadmap on multiple time horizons, starting with the technologies that are available immediately, and then the ones that are emerging technologies on the 1 to 5 year time horizon. And those technologies that we build into the roadmap for the sites in Brazil are necessarily going to be different because the challenges are different than a site in, say, northern Manitoba in Canada.
Yeah.
How many sites, Greg, are you looking at in for this project?
So we have several sites in Canada, in Manitoba, our flagship in Sudbury, as well as Newfoundland, Labrador. We also have a cluster of base metal sites in Brazil that we look at. We have an operating site in Indonesia and one down in New Caledonia as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but what I would add is that's what makes the tailings problem so complex and difficult to solve. Because if you ask, for instance, what is the best technology to detect seepage? Well, it really depends on who is asking. Yeah. So if you are running a site in northern Brazil that is a very humid region and has a very frequent rains, you have a need. If you're up here in the desert in Arizona, it's completely different. So that's why in our analysis, we couldn't really make a ranking of the best technologies because it didn't make sense. That's why we decided to do the heat map, because then every site will have a specific performance parameter that's important for them.
So you're currently obviously creating the best combinations of technologies and engineering companies to help you with a solution on each site. How long do you reckon will it take? When do you think you will have you'll be able to take the findings from the study and actually apply them in practice at those sites that you've identified?
So we're going to be able to move the technologies that are immediately commercially available. We're already actually reviewing potential applications, and we will have some technologies deployed as early as Q2 of 2021 for things like measuring bathymetry in a pond, as Luciano mentioned, which is a critical parameter in terms of how you proceed to deposit tailings into a basin. And it can drive a number of operational changes. So you need to have a clear understanding of what's happening in the bottom of the pond as you deposit tailings in there. So that's one example, but there are examples of satellite monitoring, which we're already undergoing trials on. So a lot of the technological developments, some of them, I shouldn't say a lot, but a number of them will be able to be put into place effective immediately.
Okay. Yeah. The other aspect to consider is that it's really a journey. So as Greg said, there are things that are readily available, you can implement right now. There are other things that, for instance, if you want to have a digital twin of your site, there are some requirements in place. You need to have characterization surveys. You need to have your instrumentation plugged into IoT devices for real-time data collection. So there are some enabling technologies that need to be in place to allow more developed or effective solutions in the future. And it's constantly moving. So as we speak, there are thousands of people still working on new applications and new technologies. So one of the things that Greg asked us to do was to find what is going on in the world of academia and consortium. So we actually run a request for information, and we cataloged almost 400 projects that could have potential application to Vale's portfolio.
Okay. So now with the results from the study available, I read in the presentation that you're going to go on a roadshow with the findings. I understand you will be presenting the findings to, I presume, local offices. How is that? How are you going to do that? Or I mean, what are you planning? So you'll be presenting the findings to Vale engineers on the ground. What form is that going to take?
So we're currently planning in the coming weeks that we'll be developing or executing a series of workshops, and we designed them to be delivered regionally. So there will be a workshop for our Brazilian sites, one for our sites in Ontario, and on and on and on. And the regional workshops will focus on demonstrating to the sites the types of technologies that we've found, and it'll set the stage for matching up and developing the technology roadmaps for each of those sites. That's going to happen in January. So there's going to be a fairly intense period of activity in the coming 8 to 12 weeks around development of and execution of workshops to finalize the technology roadmaps on a site-by-site basis.
So you're moving pretty fast.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
It's the topic of dam safety is just too important to
yes.
to not be aggressive in our achievement of our goals.
I was wondering also about you mentioned the importance of the topic. How are other operators of tailings facilities likely to benefit from what you found and the solutions that you are implementing?
Well, of course, the industry as a whole is going to benefit because we participate in a number of industry associations like ICMM and the Mining Association of Canada, among others. And there's a number of different platforms through which we can share best practice, and deployment of emerging technologies would certainly fall into that bucket of things that we do from an information exchange standpoint. We have lots of contacts within our peer companies, mining industry, with which we commonly share information, techniques, and ideas for evaluation and information sharing purposes. So just because it may have been a technology that was identified through a Vale Stratalis initiative doesn't mean it won't very quickly be disseminated throughout the industry.
Yeah. Luciano, have you had interest from other mining companies in the type of work that you've just completed with Vale? Right.
Yeah. So of course there are aspects of the project that are confidential to Vale, and then we can't talk very openly. But for the part that is public and not critical, we have actually been presenting some of these findings into conferences. So I presented at Amira ROAR Global Conference. I just presented at the Tailings and Mine Waste Conference. And there is certainly interest, and I think the type of integrated solutions that the Stratalis came across that can transform the operations at Vale can transform the operations at any other mining company. So I hope that the industry sees the value in adopting this approach and gets in this journey with us. Another thing that I would say is, Greg mentioned that it starts with workshops and the roadshow with the sites. But what we really hope that will happen over time is it will change the way that people operate. So we expect that as people try new technologies and have data platforms to share the findings, it will become a lot more collaborative over time.
So what do you think, say, give it a couple of years, what will the Vale tailings facility that is already in existence, what will that look like in, say, 5 years, Greg?
I think what we're expecting to see is a shift from intensive, labor-intensive data gathering to moving towards real-time performance monitoring, real-time analytical methods, and starting to migrate towards using machine learning and artificial intelligence to analyze performance data and identify emerging trends and emerging issues or concerns, which will then allow us to take corrective action rapidly and appropriately. So it's really going to be an evolution rather than a step change. So it's going to be a journey for sure. And
say if there was a new project now being launched, how would the tailings facility for a brand new project differ from what we have at the moment?
Yeah.
How would I'm wondering about the planning and how you would conceive those facilities if you were to start from scratch.
So there could be a number of potential changes. One of the things that we spent some time looking at with Stratalis was nanotechnology. So small, not microscopic, but tiny sensors that could be embedded in the structure of the dam to provide performance monitoring over time that you can't always necessarily put into a dam that's already constructed. So when we get into the conceptual engineering phases of a new development where we were planning a new basin, we would take a look at the work that we've performed with Stratalis and say, what technologies have we identified that would really help us move the needle from good to great in tailings management before we've even placed the first bucket of dirt on the ground. So there are technologies there that would help us improve monitoring of foundation conditions, dam fill materials that could help us on the quality assurance, quality control works on the construction of the dam, and on, all aspects of the construction.
Right. And besides monitoring technologies, we also look into new concepts that imply different design of a tailings storage facility. So things like a dry stacking, what you can do if you can really, store tailings without so much water.
Okay. Right. Well, I mean, gentlemen, we've covered a lot. Just on the chance that you might have to repeat something you said earlier, I'm just wondering, Luciano, this whole project, what have you as a consultancy learned from this? What was the surprising findings? What did you learn from working with Vale on this and working with Vale on a project like this?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because before working mining, I had a history in the aerospace, and one thing that really became clear to me is keeping a dam safe is very much like keeping an airplane safe.
Okay,
so it's a combination of lots of subsystems, and if you have uncertainties in the measurements, they creep up and combine, and then all of a sudden you think that you have a safe dam, but there is too much rain, the slope is too steep, you have bonding creeping in, and all these little things combine and can result in an unsafe condition, very much like an airplane.
okay.
So I think that everybody's familiar with the recent history of the Boeing 737 MAX. We had two accidents. It was also a combination of factors. We had a faulty sensor. We had the software that was programmed to do nasty things, and we have pilots that didn't know what the software was doing. So three factors put the two planes down. Look at what happened in Brumadinho. It's probably the most well-known accident. Was a combination of 6 factors. So I think what the industry needs to do is to recognize the complexity and start monitoring these uncertainties in a very precise way, in a way that probably has not been done so far. So that's why we recommend a level of integration that is different from what was available before.
And for you, Greg, how does Vale come out of this project? What are you taking home, as it were?
Yeah, so for me, there's a number of benefits, and probably the most unexpected learning for me personally was the realization as the project progressed of just how much advanced thinking and technological evolution there is outside of the mining industry that's applicable to the mining industry. So there's, it's a realization, and in hindsight, it should have been obvious, but there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work in a lot of industries. And I think, the farther we cast our net and search for potential solutions to the issues we face, the more likely we are to find some innovative solutions. So, for Vale, we can get value and performance improvement effective immediately, right? We already are, in fact. So, the ability for us to say we can better mitigate risk now than we could last week, and we'll be able to say the same thing again next week and next month. That's a pretty powerful achievement.
Okay. I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you very much, Greg Puro and Luciano Oliveira, for joining us for this Future of Mining exclusive. Hopefully we'll see each other during a proper physical industry conference at one point in the future.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Yes.
My pleasure as well, and thank you for having us today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, Andre. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Take care.